Please do not act like you forgot. It is Uncle Vlad reporting live to the scene. If nobody's gonna give him his credit, you know that we will. In Fate Apocrypha, when Karna tried to speed blitz him from behind, Vlad was able to turn around and respond with no effort at all. You had Karna try to do this again with a fireball, even while being hidden by the smoke, and it still didn't work. Vlad still blocked it. You had them fighting on equal ground, despite the fact that they traded several blows, Vlad even going as far to trap Karna by manipulating his stakes in the fight. Mind you that Karna is a top servant. He was delivering an onslaught of blows all at one time, and Vlad was able to keep up with every single one of them. He also tried to hit Vlad with an energy blast right after the fact, and Vlad was still quick enough to deflect it. From the novel, we know that he was able to take down 49 mages sent from the clock tower in just 30 seconds alone. He has the ability to manipulate his stakes and use them as a form of defense. When Atalanta tried to shoot an arrow at his blind spot, the stakes took care of the hit just before it reached him. And to top it off, she shot him while he was still fighting against Karna. He has great reflexes, being able to catch a wine glass from Carmilla without even realizing that he had done it. His reaction time is just that good. In Apocrypha specifically, you have his Defender of the State EX, which is a buff that he gets from being in his homeland. While he's fighting in Romania, he gets an increase to all his parameters, and he gains access to his Bay Phantasm. His combat skills are on par with the Berserker with A rank Mad Enhancement, and overall it's said that him being in his domain puts him on par with Achilles, who is also a top servant. This is how he was able to keep up with Karna so easily. If he leaves his homeland, then his powers turn to regular status. You have his Mad Enhancement EX, the highest level of Mad Enhancement that you can have, upping his stats by a great amount while being one of the only spirits that keep their sanity. You have his Blood Sucking at A rank that plays on his background of him being Dracula. This allows him to turn people into minions by sucking on their blood. We know that he can turn into a cloud of mist at will. This is thanks to his shape-shifting skill at C rank. This also lets him turn into bats, making him more difficult to deal with up close than the average servant. He has one of the highest levels of battle continuation at A rank. Despite him taking on numerous fatal wounds, you will not be seeing him back down until you finish him off completely. From the story, we know that he has access to a horse that's actually a golem created for him by Aversbraun, giving him higher mobility than normal with zero cost to him. We've seen this same horse jump off of a 100-meter cliff with Vlad on him, and the novel tells us that it still wouldn't take any damage from this. The horse is also seen keeping up with Frankenstein, who is an entire servant that runs at a great speed on her own. The novel tells us that the horse can run on top of its stakes if it needs to, and it still won't receive any damage. You have his Phantasm, the Lord of Execution, which plays on his background of him executing 20,000 Ottoman. The story tells us that the Phantasm gives him free reign to take out at least 10,000 people. Beyond him being able to create these stakes, they also work conceptually as well, being able to puncture Karna multiple times at once from the inside out. The stakes are also made to connect with each other, meaning that he can create more from the ones that already exist. We know that at his best, he can summon at least 2,000 of them at one time. And in Apocrypha specifically, as long as he had enough mana, he could keep making an infinite amount. At the time where he had Karna trapped within his stakes, he created an entire hailstorm that not only weaved throughout the sky, but he can control the direction as he pleases. We've even seen him divide his storm into multiple sections in order to trap Karna so he couldn't escape. When he was up against the 50 magi from the clock tower, they all tried to hit him with their spells at once, and before he took them down, he just sat there negating them all. We've seen that his stakes are powerful enough to stop Spartacus despite him being a berserker and having great physical strength in his own right. We've seen him use these against the Dragon Tooth Warriors. He was able to take down 500 of them in 30 seconds just like he did the Magi. We know that when he pierced Karna from the inside out, he actually hit his heart multiple times with his stakes, but he has to pierce the enemy at least least one time before he can use this concept. He tactfully brought these out of the ground the moment that Karna landed in order to spear him through the foot and trap him in that same location. Even without his buff, when he was in Semiramis's hanging gardens, he was still able to block Karna's fireball with his stakes by using them as a barrier, and didn't have a scratch on him either. From Grand Order, we've seen that he can imbue his stakes with magical energy to make them more powerful upon contact. He can extend his stake from one of his hands and enlarge it with energy, changing it into a form of an energy sword. Then you have his phantasm, Legend of Dracula, which completely takes on his legend form, one that he hates to use. This transforms him into a vampire entirely, drastically increasing his power, his speed, and his size all at the same time. Even after Darnik had fused himself with his spirit, Vlad was still resisting the spell even after losing control, just to show his level of willpower. When Joan tried to suffocate him with the command spell around the neck, he was able to break out of it with just strength alone. Keep in mind that Joan, as a ruler, is supposed to have authority over all the servants, and it still didn't work on him. This man was physically bending the rules. You had Darnik mention that if he had got a hold of Karna while he was in this form, he could actually tear him apart. While Darnik was trying to take over his body before he actually got it to work, Vlad still was able to run straight through him with his spear, ignoring the mental interference. While he's in this form, it's said that each stake has the power on the level of a noble phantasm. Again, going back to his ridiculous speed, when he caught up with Karna didn't even realize what was happening, and Vlad followed this up by punching him into the wall. One of the greatest feats we've seen in Apocrypha, we saw Vlad take on 6 servants, including a ruler and top servants, all at once, and they were the ones having a hard time. He managed to stop Achilles in the middle of his pursuit, grabbed him by his own spear and slammed him into the ground. Just him missing one of his strikes against Achilles was enough to gouge out multiple openings in the entire wall. You can just imagine how bad this would be if the hit actually connected. In terms of defense, you had Karna outright impale him through the heart, and it did nothing to him. When he grabbed Achilles by the spear, this was after Achilles shoved the spear straight through his arm, starting off with the front of his hand, and he just ignored the damage and regenerated his body before giving him the work. When he was getting shot multiple times by Atalanta's arrows, even taking a shot directly to his eyeball, the man was laughing, took out her arrows with his hand, and flat out regenerated. You had him take on multiple hits from average bronze golems, and they couldn't put a dent on him. When Chiron tried to use 5 arrows to shoot Vlad in the legs and slow him down, not only did Vlad take the hit head on, but he used his shape-shifting ability to turn into a swarm of bats and ignore the damage. When Semiramis hit Vlad with her lightning defense system from her hanging garden, he just straight up tanked it. When Chiron landed a kick straight to his chest and knocked him into the wall, this wasn't enough to stop him either. We know that when Achilles tried to attack him, the novel tells us that the spear was traveling faster than Mach speed, outright saying it was like catching a missile barehanded. While he's shooting out his stakes in this form, they also come out in supersonic speed. He managed to speed blitz Karna and use his stake concept on himself for a porcupine effect, stabbing both him and Achilles at once. The split second that Achilles got distracted, he tactfully used this to his advantage and speed blitzed him into a wall. The story tells us that he moves at a speed so fast that he might as well be teleporting. Prior to him getting kicked by Chiron, you had him weave around multiple of Atalanta's arrows while being in the air. If Vlad can time it properly, he can straight up negate moves by using his shape-shifting ability, using this on Chiron when he tried to shoot him in the back with his arrows. He also can use this shape-shifting ability for travel, giving him access to flight, something that's only available to a certain number of servants. On top of him taking Semiramis's lasers head on, we've seen him outright dodge her lasers with just a moment to spare. He can shoot his stakes directly out of the palm of his hands in the form of a machine gun. His blood-sucking skill allowed him to turn homunculi into his vampiric minions. This works as a chain effect, also allowing his minions to turn others as well, giving him the ability to create his own army. He can manipulate his effect of turning himself into mist and use a projectile sludge to hold you in place. We've seen him use this against Karna to trap his foot. He was able to find the location of the Holy Grail in the Hanging Gardens just by using its scent alone. Something very unique to him is that he's allowed to bypass the conceptual defense of Achilles due to Vlad's vampire bites not being an actual attack and more so a move to make you his ally. These don't count against him. In this form, he has a heightened level of instincts, one that told him how dangerous that Shirokotami actually was. We've seen that its extra form was able to pierce straight through Passion Lip by using his spear. He was one of the few servants that were capable of holding Passion Lip down despite her monstrous strength. Alongside Gawain, Elizabeth, and Robin Hood, it's important to note that Passion Lip has greater physical strength than all of them combined. In the Seraph chapter, he told Gawain that he couldn't pierce him as easily as he would normally due to the fact that a demon god was inside of his body. Again, you have his conceptual ability to summon stakes from the inside of his body, but this time they come out in the form of actual weapons. He took a hit straight to the chest from Emiya Alter's Noble Phantasm Unlimited Lost Works. Not only was Emiya Alter surprised, but he also praised Vlad for this, saying that it should have finished him immediately. Emiya himself pointing out that Vlad is tough. In this form, he's went head up with the servant Cuchulainn, being shown to be able to hold his own with little problem. Again, Ku is also a top servant. In the Seraph chapter, you had Tristan say that he couldn't hope to defeat Vlad due to his level in the chapter. Despite him being severely wounded by Passion Lip alongside Gawain, he still managed to survive and continue fighting. And once again, we have his Fortress of Impalement Phantasm that he used to hit multiple demon god pillars all at one time at a great distance. This even put Lev Liner on the run in the process. The Phantasm taking his stakes a step further by summoning an entire field's worth of weapons before finally putting his targets on a skewer to finish it off. We like that rotisserie well done. Just like in his real life, you can find out what happens when you underestimate his skill, just like the Ottoman. He's able to summon countless stakes from outside and inside his body. He has his vampire composite form that can take on up to 6 servants, many of them being of the highest level. If you fight him in his territory, it puts him on par with some of the best servants in Fate. Even if you fight him outside of his territory, he can shapeshift to increase his reaction speed or negate attacks altogether. Even without the buffs from his homeland, you'd be reaching to not give him at least a B rank.